My parents said I could stay if I signed one page. My sister watched me with a smile that wasn't kind. I signed it. The following morning, their lawyer called me 6 times, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with the moment I realized I'd become disposable. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late September when I pulled into the driveway of the house I grew up in. The maple tree out front had turned early, dropping red leaves across the walkway like scattered warnings. I'd been living in a rental across town for 3 months, ever since the divorce finalized and Emily took everything that wasn't nailed down. The settlement had been brutal. She got the house, the newer car, and a chunk of my retirement account that made my accountant physically wince. At 62, I was supposed to be thinking about golf and grandkids. Instead, I was wondering if I could afford both rent and groceries next month. We're waiting. No emoji, no warmth, just a statement of fact that somehow felt like a threat. I grabbed my jacket from the passenger seat and walked up the path I'd walked 10,000 times before. The door was unlocked. Inside, the living room smelled like expensive coffee and my mother's rose perfume, the kind she'd worn since 1987 and refused to change despite every Christmas gift suggestion otherwise. The furniture had been rearranged since my last visit. The old brown couch Dad bought in '92 was gone, replaced by something sleek and gray that looked uncomfortable as hell. Diane sat in the leather armchair by the window, the one that used to be Dad's reading spot. She wore business casual, dark slacks, cream blouse, minimal jewelry. Her hair was cut shorter than last time, angled and severe. She was 59 but could pass for younger in the right light. She'd always been the pretty one, the social one, the one who knew how to smile at exactly the right moment to get exactly what she wanted. Mom sat on the new gray couch, hands folded in her lap like a schoolgirl waiting for the principal. She was 78 and shrinking, her frame collapsing inward year by year. Her eyes were distant, focused on something only she could see. The dementia had come fast after Dad died, like she'd been holding herself together through sheer will, and the moment he was gone, she just let go. My son Trevor stood near the dining room entrance, arms crossed, face blank. He was 34, married 2 years, and worked in commercial real estate. We'd been close once. He used to call me every Sunday just to talk about nothing. That stopped around the time Emily started filing paperwork. "Dad," he said, nodding once. "Trevor." Diane gestured to the couch. "Sit down. We need to talk." I stayed standing. "Your text said it was important." "It is." She reached for a folder on the side table, pulled out a single sheet of paper. "Mom can't live alone anymore. You know that. Trevor and I have been handling everything for months while you've been dealing with your situation." "My situation? Your divorce." She said it like it was a medical condition. "We've been paying for in-home care, managing her medications, dealing with the bills. It's not sustainable." Trevor shifted his weight. "We're looking at assisted living facilities, good ones, but they're expensive." "How expensive?" $6,000 a month, Diane said. "More if she needs memory care, which she will." I did the math in my head. $72,000 a year. Mom's Social Security and Dad's pension barely covered $4,000 a month. The house was paid off but would need to be sold to cover the rest, and even then, it wouldn't last more than a few years. "What about the trust?" I asked. "Dad set up a living trust. There's money there." Diane's smile was thin and sharp. "The trust is complicated. Dad named you as successor trustee, but given your current financial problems, Trevor and I think it's better if we handle it." "Financial problems?" "You're living in a 1-bedroom apartment and driving a car with 200,000 miles on it," Trevor said. His voice was flat, factual, like he was describing the weather. "Emily cleaned you out. Everyone knows it." The room went quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen and the distant sound of a lawnmower outside. Diane set the paper on the coffee table. We talked to Mom's lawyer. He drew this up. It's a temporary residential agreement. You can stay here while you get back on your feet. Help with Mom during the transition. It'll save you rent money, and we'll have someone here full-time until we move her. I looked at the document. 1 page, single-sided, standard legal format. The header read, Temporary Residential Agreement. Why do I need to sign something? Liability, Trevor said. If you're living here and something happens, Mom falls, the house burns down, whatever, we need documentation that you're here with permission and not as an owner or tenant with rights. Diane leaned forward. It protects everyone. You get a place to stay. We get help with Mom. Everybody wins. I picked up the paper, scanned the text. A lot of whereas and hereby and party of the first part. My name appeared 3 times. Mom's name twice. Diane and Trevor's names were buried in a paragraph about designated family representatives. Where's the lawyer? I asked. He's busy, Diane said. This is just a formality. He'll file it Monday. What's the rush? The rush, she said, and her voice dropped into a register I'd never heard from her before, something cold and surgical, is that Trevor and I are both busy people with jobs and families and responsibilities, and we need to know whether you're going to help or whether we need to make other arrangements. Mom made a small sound, something between a sigh and a whimper. I looked at her. She was staring at her hands, twisting her wedding ring around and around on her finger. The ring was loose now. It would fall off soon if someone didn't resize it. Trevor pulled out his phone, checked something, put it away. I've got a showing at 4. Can we move this along? I looked at the paper again, at the signature line with my name printed underneath. At Diane's smile that wasn't kind. At my son who couldn't meet my eyes. At my mother who was disappearing piece by piece into a place none of us could follow. And I thought about the 1-bedroom apartment with the broken dishwasher and the neighbors who fought at 2 a.m. and the landlord who'd already hinted that rent was going up in January. I thought about the cupboards in that apartment, mostly empty except for generic pasta and canned soup. I thought about being 62 and alone and running out of options. You have a pen? I asked. Diane handed me one without a word. Ballpoint, black ink, the cheap kind banks give away. I sat down on the gray couch next to Mom, set the paper on the coffee table, and signed my name on the line. My handwriting was worse than I remembered. The letters looked shaky, uncertain, old. The moment I lifted the pen, Diane picked up the paper, folded it twice, and slid it back into the folder. Thank you, she said, but there was no gratitude in it, just satisfaction. Trevor was already heading for the door. I'll bring some boxes by this weekend, help you move your stuff in. Great. He paused at the threshold, looked back at me like he wanted to say something, then decided against it. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Diane stood, smoothed her slacks, picked up her purse from the side table. I'll have the utilities switched to your name by Friday. You'll be responsible for them while you're here. Okay. And Mom's care schedule is on the fridge. The aide comes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 to 3. You'll need to be here the other days. I understand. She walked past me toward the door, stopped, turned back. This is temporary, you know, just until we get her settled. I know. Good. She left without saying goodbye to Mom. I sat there on the uncomfortable gray couch, listening to Diane's car start outside, the engine fading as she drove away. Mom was still twisting her ring. I reached over, gently took her hand, stopped the motion. It's okay, I told her. She looked at me with those distant eyes, and for just a second there was something there. Recognition, maybe, or pity. Robert, she whispered, my father's name. No, Mom, it's me. It's Jack. The recognition faded. She pulled her hand away, went back to twisting the ring. I got up, walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge. Inside was a schedule printed on pink paper, held by a magnet shaped like a sunflower. The aide's name was Patricia. Her phone number was listed at the top. Below that, a detailed breakdown of Mom's daily routine: medications, meals, bathroom schedule, activities to avoid. Next to the schedule was a list of emergency contacts. Trevor's name was first, Diane's second. Mine wasn't on the list at all. I pulled out my phone to check the time and saw the missed calls. 6 of them, all from the same number, all from this morning between 7:15 and 8:30 a.m. I didn't recognize the number, but there was a voicemail. I played it. "Jack, this is Howard Brennan. I'm your mother's attorney. I need you to call me back immediately. Do not sign anything else. Do not speak to your sister. Call me as soon as you get this." The message had come in at 7:47 a.m. I'd signed the paper at 3:15 p.m. I stood there in my mother's kitchen, holding my phone, feeling something cold and certain settle in my chest. The page number on the document didn't match the stack. I'd noticed it too late. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a dog barked. Somewhere upstairs, a floorboard creaked. I called Howard Brennan back. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. Instead, I walked back to the living room, sat down in Dad's old chair, Diane's chair now, apparently, and looked at my mother, who was humming something tuneless and sad. "Mom," I said quietly, "what did I just sign?" She didn't answer. Maybe she didn't hear me. Maybe she didn't understand. Maybe she knew and couldn't say. I sat there until the sun started setting, painting the walls orange and gold, and I thought about how fast things can change, how one signature can shift the entire world, how trust is the easiest thing to weaponize. And I thought about my sister's smile. I woke up in my childhood bedroom at 6:42 a.m. to the sound of someone moving around downstairs. For a moment, I forgot where I was. The ceiling was wrong. No water stain from the leak I never fixed. The air smelled wrong. No mildew from the bathroom exhaust fan that needed replacing. Then it came back. Mom's house, the signature, the 6 missed calls. I'd moved my stuff in yesterday. It hadn't taken long, 3 trips in the Toyota, mostly clothes and books, and a few kitchen items I'd accumulated in the apartment. Everything I owned fit in my old bedroom with space to spare. The footsteps downstairs were purposeful, methodical. I checked my phone. No new calls from Howard Brennan, no texts from Diane or Trevor. Just a notification from my bank app reminding me that I had $43 until my next Social Security deposit. I pulled on jeans and a flannel shirt, made my way downstairs. The footsteps were coming from the kitchen. When I rounded the corner, I found a woman I didn't recognize standing at the counter, sorting through pill bottles. She was maybe 50, heavy-set, wearing purple scrubs and white sneakers. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun. She glanced up when I entered, gave me a quick, appraising look, then went back to the pills. "You must be Jack," she said. Her voice had a slight accent, Caribbean maybe. "I'm Patricia, the aide." "Right, the schedule. I come Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Today's Friday." She gestured at the pill bottles. "Your mother's medications. She needs to take these with breakfast. I usually make her oatmeal. She likes it with brown sugar and cinnamon." "Okay." Patricia pulled out her phone, checked something, frowned. "I got a message from your sister yesterday. Said you'd be staying here now. Said I should check with you before making any changes to the routine." "Changes?" "Mrs. Brennan, your mother, she's been asking for her husband. Gets agitated around 4 p.m. every day, wants to know when Robert's coming home. I usually redirect her, but it's getting harder." She paused. "Your sister wants me to report any behavioral issues directly to her." "Report. Document them. Times, triggers, duration. She's building a case for memory care placement." I leaned against the counter, watching Patricia line up the pills in a small plastic organizer. 7 bottles, each with a different colored cap. How bad is she? I asked. Patricia's hands stopped moving. She looked at me directly for the first time. Bad enough that she shouldn't be left alone. Good enough that she knows something's wrong and it scares her. That's specific. I've been doing this 12 years. I know when someone's close to the edge. She went back to the pills. Your sister's not wrong about the memory care. It's coming. Question is when and where and who decides. And you're documenting all of this for her. I'm documenting what I see. What people do with it isn't my business. Mom appeared in the doorway, wearing a pink bathrobe that had seen better days. Her hair was uncombed, standing up in white tufts. She looked at Patricia, then at me, confusion flickering across her face. "Robert," she said. "It's Jack, Mom, your son." Jack. She tested the word like it was foreign. Jack's at school. No, Mom. I'm here. I'm staying here now. She shuffled to the table, sat down heavily. Patricia already had a bowl ready, oatmeal steaming, brown sugar sprinkled on top. She set it in front of Mom with a spoon and the pill organizer. "Eat first," Patricia said gently. "Then your vitamins." I poured myself coffee from a pot Patricia must have made earlier, sat down across from Mom. She ate slowly, mechanically, each spoonful requiring concentration. Between bites, she'd look around the room like she was trying to remember why she was there. My phone buzzed. Text from Trevor. "You settled in?" I typed back, "Yeah." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Good. Diane wants to talk to you tomorrow, 10 a.m., at the house." "Why?" The dots stopped. No response. I set the phone down, watched Patricia guide Mom through her medications, each pill taken with a sip of water, each one checked off on a chart she kept on a clipboard. "Your sister," Patricia said without looking up. "She's very organized. She always has been. Organized people like control. They like things in boxes, labeled, managed." She helped Mom stand, guided her toward the living room. "You ever wonder why control matters so much to people? Not really. Because they're scared." She settled Mom on the couch, turned on the TV to a nature documentary. Scared people do dangerous things. She left at 3 p.m., said she'd be back Monday. I spent the rest of the afternoon trying to reach Howard Brennan. His office phone went to voicemail. His cell phone went to voicemail. I left 3 messages. None of them were returned. At 4 p.m., exactly when Patricia said it would happen, Mom started getting agitated. She stood up from the couch, walked to the window, looked outside. "Robert's late," she said. "He's never late." "Mom, Dad's not coming? He's been gone a long time." "No." She shook her head, adamant. "He went to work. He always comes home." I tried to redirect her like Patricia had mentioned, but Mom was insistent. She went to the front door, tried to open it. I'd locked it earlier. She rattled the handle, growing more upset. "Let me out. I need to find Robert." "Mom, you can't go outside. It's not safe." She turned on me, and for a moment, the confusion cleared, replaced by something sharp and angry. "You locked me in. You're keeping me prisoner. I'm keeping you safe. Liar." She slapped at my chest, weak but furious. "Liar. You're not Jack. Jack wouldn't do this." I grabbed her hands gently, held them still. "Mom, I am Jack. I'm your son. He died 6 years ago. You went to his funeral. You cried for 3 days straight." The anger collapsed. She sagged against me, sobbing, and I held her while she mourned my father all over again for the 100th time. By 6 p.m., she'd forgotten the episode entirely. I made her dinner. Chicken and rice, simple and soft. She ate without complaint, went to bed at 8 p.m., asleep within minutes. I sat in the living room in the dark, drinking the last of the coffee, thinking about Patricia's words. Scared people do dangerous things. At 9:37 p.m., my phone rang. Howard Brennan, finally. "Jack, did you sign something yesterday?" "Yes." A long silence. "What did it say?" Temporary residential agreement. I'd be staying here to help with my mother. Jesus Christ. He sounded tired. Did you read it? Most of it. Did you read the section about successor trustee authority? My chest tightened. What section? Page 2, bottom half. It was only one page. No, Howard said quietly. It wasn't. I stood up, started pacing. What are you talking about? The document your sister had you sign was 2 pages. The first page was the residential agreement. The second page was a trustee resignation and transfer of authority. By signing, you resigned as successor trustee and transferred all trust authority to Diane and Trevor jointly. The room tilted. I only saw 1 page. I know. That's why I called you 6 times yesterday morning. Your sister came to my office Tuesday, asked me to prepare the paperwork. I told her I wouldn't do it without your attorney present. She left angry. He paused. She must have had someone else draft it. Why would she do that? Because the trust holds everything. The house, your father's life insurance payout, about $400,000 in investments. Your father set it up so you'd be in control if something happened to your mother. Diane and Trevor are named as beneficiaries, but they can't access anything without trustee approval. And now they can. Now they control it completely. You have no authority. You can't access the funds, can't stop them from selling the house, can't prevent them from moving your mother. They have full discretion. I sat down hard on the couch. Can we undo it? Maybe, if we can prove fraud, misrepresentation, undue influence. But it'll take time and money, and your sister knows you don't have either. So that's it. Not necessarily. Howard's voice changed, got careful. The document they had you sign has a flaw. What kind of flaw? It grants them trustee authority, but it doesn't revoke your residential rights. The first page of that agreement, the part you actually read, gives you permission to live in the house for an undefined period. They can't remove you without cause and proper notice. How long? California law requires 60 days minimum for family residential agreements. But the wording they used is even broader. It says you can stay during the period of maternal care transition. That's vague enough to be interpreted multiple ways. I felt something loosen in my chest. So I'm not leaving. Not immediately. But Jack, listen carefully. Your sister is smart and she's motivated. She's already moved against you once. She will move again. Let her. This isn't a game. She has resources. She has Trevor backing her up. She has control of the trust. What do you have? I looked around the dark living room, at the shapes of furniture I'd known my whole life, at the stairs I'd climbed 10,000 times, at the door my father had walked through every evening at 5:45 p.m. for 30 years. I have access, I said. Access to what? To the house, to my mother, to information. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the street I'd grown up on. Diane thinks she took my authority. What she actually did was put me inside her operation. Howard was quiet for a moment. What are you planning? I'm not planning anything. I'm just staying in my mother's house like the agreement says I can. Jack? Thanks for calling, Howard. I hung up before he could argue. The house creaked around me, settling into the night. Upstairs, I could hear Mom breathing, slow and steady. Outside, the streetlights buzzed. A car passed, headlights sweeping across the walls. I thought about Diane's smile. I thought about Trevor's blank face. I thought about the document I'd signed without reading. And I thought about my father, who'd spent 30 years as a facilities manager for 3 different commercial properties, who'd taught me that the person who controls the building controls everything, who'd shown me how power isn't about ownership. It's about access, information, and knowing which systems to manipulate. They thought they'd taken my name off the trust. What they'd actually given me was a reason to pay attention. I went upstairs, past Mom's room, to my childhood bedroom. In the closet, I found an old notebook from my own career, 23 years managing municipal facilities before the budget cuts forced early retirement. Pages of notes, contacts, procedures, the kind of institutional knowledge that never makes it into official manuals. I'd forgotten most of it. I was about to remember. The first thing that went wrong happened at 2:14 a.m. on Wednesday. I woke to the sound of water running, a lot of it, somewhere below me. I threw on clothes, ran downstairs. The kitchen was flooding. Water poured from the cabinet under the sink, spreading across the tile, soaking the baseboards. I dropped to my knees, opened the cabinet, found the shut-off valve, twisted it closed. The water stopped. The damage was already done. 2 inches of standing water across the entire kitchen floor, seeping into the dining room. The cabinets were soaked. The subflooring would be destroyed. I grabbed every towel I could find, started soaking up water. Mom appeared in the doorway, confused and frightened. "What happened?" "Pipe burst. It's okay. Go back to bed." "There's so much water." "I know, Mom. I'm handling it." She didn't move, just stood there in her nightgown, watching me work. After a minute, she turned and shuffled back toward the stairs. I spent 3 hours cleaning up, moving everything out of the lower cabinets, running the wet-dry vac I found in the basement, setting up fans to dry the subflooring. By 5:30 a.m., I'd done everything I could. The kitchen was a disaster, but at least it wasn't underwater anymore. I checked the pipe that had burst. Clean break, right at a joint. Not corrosion, not age. Someone had loosened it. I took photos with my phone. Close-ups of the joint, the threads, the connection point. Then I tightened it back up, turned the water on, checked for leaks. Everything held. At 6 a.m., my phone rang. Trevor. "What the hell happened?" he said. "Pipe burst in the kitchen. I fixed it." "Diane got an alert from the water sensor. It says you used 200 gallons in 3 hours. That's what happens when a pipe bursts." "Why did the pipe burst?" "Old house. Things break. Things don't just break at 2 a.m. This one did." Silence. Then, "Diane's sending someone to inspect the damage." "When?" "This morning, 9 a.m. Be there." He hung up. I made coffee, checked on Mom, still asleep, then went back to the basement, found the water main shut off, the one that controlled the entire house, checked the valve, the connections, everything. No signs of tampering, but the kitchen pipe hadn't loosened itself. At 9:03 a.m., a white van pulled into the driveway. The side said, "Reliable Property Services, Inspection and Repair." A guy got out, mid-30s, wearing a company polo and carrying a clipboard. He knocked on the front door, waited. I let him in. "You Jack?" he asked. "Yeah. I'm Ryan. Your sister hired me to assess the flood damage." "It wasn't a flood. It was a burst pipe." "Same thing for insurance purposes." He walked past me into the kitchen, looked around, whistled low. "That's a lot of water damage." "I cleaned it up. I can see that." He pulled out a moisture meter, started testing the cabinets, the baseboards, the subflooring. "This is bad. You're looking at cabinet replacement, floor replacement, possible mold remediation." "How much?" $15,000 minimum. Maybe more if we find mold in the walls. "The pipe just burst last night." "There's no mold yet." "Not yet, but there will be if we don't act fast." He made notes on his clipboard. "I'll send your sister a full report. She'll need to file an insurance claim." "And if she doesn't?" He looked at me like I was stupid. "Then the damage gets worse and the house becomes unsellable." He left at 9:35 a.m. At 10 a.m., Diane called. "Ryan says the house needs $15,000 in repairs," she said. "That's his estimate. He's a professional. He's your contractor." "Are you accusing me of something?" "I'm saying the pipe didn't burst on its own." "What are you talking about?" "Someone loosened it. Deliberately." She laughed, sharp and humorless. "You think I broke into the house at 2 a.m. and sabotaged a pipe?" "Someone did. Or the house is falling apart because it's 50 years old and hasn't been properly maintained. Dad maintained this house perfectly. Not like that. Believe what you want. The fact is, we have $15,000 in damage, and the trust is going to pay for it, and it's one more reason Mom can't live there anymore. Convenient timing. Convenient for who? For you. You want the house empty so you can sell it. I want the house safe. There's a difference. She hung up. I stood in the kitchen, looking at the damaged cabinets, the warped subflooring, the baseboards that would need replacing. $15,000, money that would come out of the trust, money that would reduce what was left for Mom's care, money that made the house look like a liability instead of an asset. I called Howard Brennan. The pipe burst was sabotage, I said. Can you prove it? I have photos. Photos of what? A broken pipe? That's not proof of sabotage. The joint was loosened deliberately. How do you know? Because I know pipes. I worked in facilities management for 23 years. That's not evidence. That's opinion. So what do? Document everything. Date, time, circumstances, your assessment. If this goes to court, it'll all matter. And if it doesn't go to court, then you're wasting your time. I hung up, went back downstairs, pulled out the house plans again. If someone had loosened that pipe, they'd need access to the house. Diane had a key. Trevor had a key. Patricia had a code for the lockbox on the back door. Or someone could have broken in. I checked every window, every door. No signs of forced entry. Which meant it was family. At 3 p.m., Patricia arrived for her scheduled shift. She looked around the kitchen, saw the damage, stopped. What happened? Pipe burst. Middle of the night. Anyone hurt? No, just property damage. She set down her bag, walked around the kitchen, examined the cabinets. This is going to cost a lot to fix. $15,000 according to Diane's contractor. Did insurance cover it? We'll see. She looked at me, and something in her expression shifted. You don't think this was an accident? No. You think someone did this deliberately? Yes. She pulled out her phone, started typing. I'm documenting this. For my records. Does that go to Diane? Eventually, but she'll see the timestamp. She'll know I'm recording everything you say. Good. Let her know I'm watching too. Patricia put her phone away, started preparing Mom's afternoon medications. You're playing a dangerous game. I'm not playing anything. Yes, you are, and your sister is better at it than you. Mom came into the kitchen, saw the damage, looked confused. What happened to my kitchen? Water leak, Mom. It's being fixed. Robert's going to be angry. Robert's not here, Mom. He'll be home soon. Patricia guided her to the table, started the medication routine. I watched them, thinking about Ryan the contractor, about the $15,000, about the pipe that had been loosened in the middle of the night. At 6 p.m., I got a text from an unknown number. You need to stop. This isn't helping anyone. I called the number. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. No name, no greeting. I typed back, "Who is this?" No response. At 8 p.m., Mom went to bed. I did another walkthrough of the house, checking locks, windows, doors. Everything was secure, but I didn't feel secure. I went to my room, set up my laptop, started going through the surveillance footage I'd pulled from Dad's old security camera, the one mounted outside the back door, the one Diane didn't know about because Dad had installed it himself and never told anyone. I scrolled back to 1:45 a.m., watched the back door. At 2:02 a.m., someone approached. Dark clothes, hoodie, face covered. They used a key to open the lockbox, retrieved the code, unlocked the door, went inside. 13 minutes later, they came back out, relocked everything, left. I watched the footage 3 times, trying to see identifying features. Height, build, movement patterns. Couldn't tell if it was a man or woman. Could have been Trevor. Could have been Diane. Could have been someone they hired. I downloaded the footage, saved it to 3 different locations, sent a copy to Howard Brennan with a message. Evidence, time-stamped, backdoor entry at 2:02 a.m. He responded within 5 minutes. This is good. Keep the original file secure. Don't tell anyone you have it. I sat there in my childhood bedroom, looking at the frozen frame on my laptop, at the figure in the hoodie disappearing into the darkness. They'd come into the house while I was asleep, while Mom was asleep. They'd sabotaged the plumbing, caused thousands in damage, and walked away, and they thought I wouldn't figure it out. I closed the laptop, lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow was Thursday, Patricia's day off. I'd be alone with Mom all day. I needed to be ready, because if they'd done it once, they'd do it again. Thursday morning, 6:30 a.m. I was already awake when I heard it. Movement in the basement. Footsteps, careful, but not quiet enough. I grabbed a flashlight from my nightstand, moved silently down the stairs. Mom was still sleeping, her door closed, her breathing steady through the wall. The basement door was open 6 inches. I pushed through, shined the light down the stairs. Trevor was standing at the bottom near the electrical panel, holding a screwdriver. "What are you doing?" I asked. He spun around, squinting in the flashlight beam. "Checking the breakers." At 6:30 in the morning? The kitchen damage. I wanted to make sure there wasn't electrical issues too. I came down the stairs slowly, keeping the light on him. "How'd you get in?" "I have a key." I changed the locks. He held up a key, different from the one I'd seen him use before. Diane had copies made. "We own the house, remember?" "Mom owns the house. The trust manages it. There's a difference." He turned back to the electrical panel, opened the cover. "Whatever. I'm just checking things." I came up behind him, looked over his shoulder. Every breaker was labeled in Dad's careful handwriting. Kitchen, living room, master bedroom, basement, garage. Trevor's hand was resting on the main breaker, the one that controlled power to the entire house. "Step away from the panel," I said. Step away." He moved back, hands up. "Jesus, Dad, relax." I examined the panel. Every breaker was in the correct position, no signs of tampering. But Trevor had been about to do something. I could see it in his posture, the way he'd been leaning in, the screwdriver ready. "Leave," I said. "This is Mom's house. And you're trespassing. The residential agreement gives me authority to secure the premises." "That's not what it says. Read Section 3, Occupant Rights and Responsibilities. I have the right to deny entry to anyone who poses a risk to the property or its residents." He stared at me. "You memorized the agreement?" I read it, multiple times, the whole thing, both pages. His jaw clenched. "Diane's going to hear about this." "Good. Tell her I found you tampering with the electrical panel at 6:30 in the morning." "I wasn't tampering with anything." "Then what were you doing?" He didn't answer, just pushed past me, headed for the stairs. I followed him up through the kitchen to the back door. He left without another word, got in his car, drove away. I locked the door behind him, then went back to check the electrical panel again. Everything looked fine, but I took photos anyway, documented the breaker positions, checked the main connections. Nothing was obviously wrong. But Trevor had been about to do something. At 7 a.m. I started coffee, made Mom breakfast, got her through the morning routine. She was more confused than usual, kept asking about Trevor, about why he'd been in the house so early. "He was just checking something," I told her. "He looked angry. He's always angry lately." "Are you fighting?" "A little bit." She looked at me with those distant eyes, and for a moment, clarity flickered through. "Don't let them take my house." "I won't, Mom." "Promise me." "I promise." She relaxed, went back to her oatmeal. At 9:15 a.m., Howard Brennan called. "I got the security footage," he said. "It's good evidence, but not conclusive. We can't identify who it was. It was either Diane or Trevor or someone they hired." "Probably, but probably doesn't hold up in court." "What about this morning? Trevor broke in, tried to access the electrical panel. Did he actually do anything?" I stopped him before he could. Then you have no evidence of intent, just a family member entering a house he has a key to. I changed the locks. They had new keys made. They're on the trust. They have the right to access the property for maintenance and inspection. I squeezed the phone hard enough that my knuckles went white. So they can just keep breaking in? It's not breaking in if they have legal access. Then what do I do? Document everything. Dates, times, what you observed. If we can establish a pattern of harassment or sabotage, we can petition for an injunction. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months. Mom doesn't have months. I know. I hung up, stood in the kitchen, looking at the damaged cabinets, thinking about Trevor's hand on the main breaker, about the pipe that had burst, about Diane's methodical documentation. They were going to keep coming. I needed to make it harder for them. I spent the next 2 hours reinforcing every entry point. Changed the lockbox code, added a chain lock to the back door, installed a motion sensor camera I'd found in Dad's workshop, pointed it at the basement door. If anyone came in, I'd know. At noon, I made Mom lunch, sat with her while she ate. She was quiet, withdrawn, barely touching her food. Mom, I said gently, are you okay? I want Robert. I know. Why isn't he here? He's gone, Mom. He died 6 years ago. She looked at me, tears forming. No, that's not true. It is. I'm sorry. She pushed away from the table, stood up too fast, almost fell. I caught her, held her steady. You're lying, she said. Everyone's lying. I'm not lying, Mom. Then where is he? He's gone. She pulled away from me, stumbled toward the living room, sat down hard on the couch. I followed, sat next to her, held her hand while she cried. It took 20 minutes for her to calm down. At 2 p.m., the doorbell rang. I looked through the window first. A woman stood on the porch, mid-40s, professional clothes, holding a tablet. I opened the door. Can I help you? Are you Jack? She asked. Who's asking? She held up a business card. I'm Angela Ross, social worker with Elder Care Services. I got a referral for a wellness check on Eleanor Williams. A referral from who? Her daughter, Diane Williams. May I come in? I didn't move. What's a wellness check? Just a standard assessment. We want to make sure your mother is safe and receiving appropriate care. She's receiving care. Her aide comes 3 times a week. I understand, but given recent concerns about the home environment, the flooding, the property damage, we need to verify that the living conditions are safe. Who decides what's safe? I do, based on county guidelines. And if I don't let you in? Angela's expression hardened. Then I'll file a report saying you denied access, and Adult Protective Services will follow up with a more formal investigation. I stepped back, let her in. She walked through the house slowly, methodically, making notes on her tablet. Checked the kitchen, the bathroom, Mom's bedroom, the living room where Mom was still sitting on the couch. Hello, Eleanor, Angela said gently. I'm Angela. I'm here to make sure you're doing okay. Mom looked at her, confused. Who are you? I'm a friend. I work with your daughter, Diane. Diane's at work. That's right. She asked me to check on you. Angela sat down next to Mom, asked her questions, how she was feeling, whether she felt safe, whether she had enough food, whether anyone was hurting her. Mom answered slowly, uncertain, looking at me every few seconds like she needed permission. After 15 minutes, Angela stood up, made more notes, walked back to where I was standing in the kitchen. The property damage is concerning, she said. Combined with your mother's obvious confusion, I'm not sure this is an appropriate living environment. She's been living here for 42 years. And 6 years ago, her husband was here to help. Now it's just you and your... She checked her notes. You're 62, recently divorced, experiencing financial difficulties. Who told you that? It's in the referral information. From Diane. From your sister, yes. And you're just going to take her word for it? Angela closed her tablet. I'm going to file a report recommending facility placement. Your mother needs 24/7 care in a controlled environment. She has care. Patricia comes 3 times a week. That's not sufficient for someone in your mother's condition. According to who? According to county standards for dementia patients. My mother isn't a patient. She's a person. A person who can't remember her son's name half the time. A person who's living in a house with water damage and safety hazards. A person who deserves better than this. She walked to the door, stopped. You have until Saturday to make other arrangements. After that, we'll initiate emergency placement proceedings. She left. I stood there, shaking with rage, watching her get into her county car and drive away. Emergency placement. 2 days. I pulled out my phone, called Howard Brennan. They sent a social worker, I said. Slow down. What happened? I told him everything. The wellness check, the questions, the recommendation for facility placement. This is escalating faster than I expected, Howard said. What can we do? We can fight the placement in court, but that takes time. I don't have time, she said Saturday. Saturday isn't legally binding. They can't force emergency placement without a court order. Can they get a court order? If they can prove immediate danger, yes. There's no danger. Mom is safe. The water damage, the property issues, your confrontation with Trevor this morning, it all adds up. They're building a case that the home is unsafe and you're unstable. I looked at Mom on the couch, staring at the TV, twisting her ring. I need to stop them, I said. How? I don't know yet. I hung up, walked to the living room, sat down next to Mom. They want to take you away, I told her. She didn't respond, just kept twisting the ring. I won't let them. She looked at me, and for just a moment, she was there. Really there. You can't stop them, Jack. No one can. Watch me. I spent the rest of the day preparing. I downloaded the surveillance footage from every camera Dad had installed, backed it up to multiple drives. I copied every document I had, the trust papers, the residential agreement, the property surveys, the contractor reports. I made a timeline of everything that had happened since I'd signed that paper, and I made a plan. At 8 p.m., I put Mom to bed, then went back to the basement. I looked at the electrical panel, the water main, the gas line, the furnace controls. Every system had a choke point. Tomorrow was Friday. Patricia's last day before Mom was supposed to move to Rosewood. I had 36 hours. I was going to use them. Friday started with sirens. 4:17 a.m., 3 fire trucks and an ambulance screamed past the house, waking me from shallow sleep. I looked out the window, saw them turn onto the next street, lights painting the darkness red and blue. I checked on Mom, still sleeping, then went downstairs. At 5 a.m., my phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. You need to leave before someone gets hurt. I called the number. Voicemail. No greeting. I typed back, "Who is this?" No response. At 6 a.m., I started coffee, went through the house, checking every lock, every window, every entry point. The motion sensor camera I'd installed showed no activity overnight. No one had tried to get in. But someone was watching. At 7:30, Patricia arrived early, looking worried. "Did you hear the sirens?" she asked. "Yeah. What happened?" "House fire, 3 blocks over, on Maple Street." She set down her bag, started preparing Mom's medications. "I heard it was electrical." "Anyone hurt?" "No, thank God. Family got out in time, but the house is destroyed." I felt something cold crawl up my spine. "Which house on Maple?" "The blue one. Corner lot." That was the Hendersons' house. Dad had been friends with Jim Henderson, both of them working on their lawns every Saturday morning for 20 years. "That house had new electrical," I said. "Jim upgraded it 2 years ago." Patricia looked at me. "You think it wasn't an accident?" I don't know what to think anymore. She pulled out her phone, showed me a local news article. The headline read, Suspicious fire under investigation. They found evidence of tampering, Patricia said quietly. Cut wires in the breaker panel. I sat down at the kitchen table trying to process it. The electrical fire, 3 blocks away. Trevor standing at our breaker panel yesterday morning. They're sending a message, I said. Who? Diane and Trevor. They're showing me what could happen if I don't leave. Patricia put her phone away. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious situation. If you really think they'd commit arson, you need to call the police. And tell them what? My sister and her son are sending me threats through proxy fires? They'll laugh me out of the station. Then what are you going to do? I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the street. Normal morning. People leaving for work. School buses stopping at corners. Everything ordinary and wrong at the same time. I'm going to end this, I said. How? I'm still figuring that out. Mom came downstairs at 8:15, confused about the smell of smoke in the air. I told her it was just a neighbor burning leaves. She accepted it without question. At 9 a.m., Diane called. We need to meet, she said. Today, before tomorrow. Why? Because tomorrow Mom moves to Rosewood, and we need to finalize the details. There are no details to finalize. You're moving her against my advice. It's not your decision anymore. We're her trustees and her medical power of attorney. We're executing Dad's estate plan properly. Dad's estate plan was for me to be successor trustee. Dad's estate plan didn't account for your financial collapse and mental instability. My mental instability. You confronted me in a parking structure. You accused Trevor of breaking into the house. You're seeing conspiracies everywhere. Because there are conspiracies everywhere. She sighed, the sound of someone dealing with an unreasonable child. Meet me at 2 p.m., Mom's lawyer's office. We'll go over the Rosewood paperwork and the house sale details. I'm not signing anything. You don't need to. We just need you informed, for legal purposes. Informed of what? That the house is being listed Monday, that Mom's moving tomorrow, that your residential agreement terminates when she's no longer living here. The agreement says during the period of maternal care transition. That's vague. Howard Brennan can argue that all he wants. Meanwhile, you'll be living in a house that's being shown to buyers, that has contractors coming through for repairs, that no longer has an occupant who needs care. How long do you think you can stay? I didn't answer. 2 p.m., she repeated. Be there. She hung up. I looked at Patricia, who'd been listening. She's moving fast. She's been moving fast since this started. You're just now catching up. At 10 a.m., Trevor showed up. I didn't let him in. We talked through the screen door like strangers. I need to take some measurements, he said, for the listing. Come back with Diane. I'm here now, and I'm not letting you in. He stared at me through the screen. This is childish. This is protecting my mother's property from someone who breaks in to tamper with electrical panels. I wasn't tampering with anything. Then what were you doing? Checking for damage after the flood, making sure everything was safe. At 6:30 in the morning, I had a client meeting at 8. It was the only time I had. And you just happened to be reaching for the main breaker when I found you. To test it, to make sure it wasn't loose. Breakers don't get loose. He pulled out his phone, tapped something, showed me the screen through the mesh. A calendar appointment. 7 a.m., check Mom's house electrical, scheduled 3 days ago, before the flood. I looked at it, couldn't tell if it was real or fabricated. I'm trying to help, Trevor said. We're all trying to help Mom. By forcing her into a memory care facility? By making sure she's safe. By making sure she doesn't die alone in this house while you're too broke and too proud to admit you can't handle this. I can handle this fine. You can't even afford to fix the water damage. The trust can afford it. The trust is being managed properly now, by people who actually know what they're doing. I stepped back from the door. Leave. Dad would be ashamed of you. The words hit harder than I expected. I stood there, hand on the doorframe, trying to find a response. Dad would be ashamed of all of us, I said finally, but especially of you. Trevor left without another word. I locked the door, leaned against it, felt something breaking inside me that I didn't know how to fix. Patricia came up behind me, put a hand on my shoulder. You okay? No. You want to talk about it? No. She squeezed my shoulder once, then went back to Mom. At 1:30 p.m. I left for the lawyer's office. Patricia stayed with Mom. I drove across town, found parking, walked into a building I'd never been to before. Howard Brennan's office was on the 3rd floor, small and cluttered with file boxes and law books. He was waiting when I arrived, standing outside the conference room with a worried expression. Diane's already inside, he said, with her own lawyer. She brought a lawyer to a family meeting? This isn't a family meeting anymore. It's a negotiation. Over what? Over how this ends. He opened the door. Inside was a conference table, 6 chairs, 2 people. Diane sat on the far side, composed and ready. Next to her was a woman in her 50s, sharp suit, expensive briefcase, the look of someone who billed $400 an hour. This is Margaret Chen, Diane said. She's representing me and Trevor in estate matters. I sat down across from them. Howard sat next to me. Margaret opened her briefcase, pulled out a document. We're here to formalize the transition plan and address outstanding concerns regarding the property and Eleanor's care. I don't have any concerns, I said. I think this entire thing is a power grab disguised as elder care. Your opinion is noted. Margaret slid the document across the table. This is a timeline. Tomorrow, Eleanor moves to Rosewood Memory Care. Monday, the house is listed for sale. Estimated sale time is 60 to 90 days. Upon sale, the residential agreement terminates and you'll need to vacate. The agreement doesn't say that. The agreement is intentionally vague. We can argue about it in court, which will cost you money you don't have, or you can accept the reality and move on. I looked at Diane. This is what you wanted all along. This is what's best for Mom. This is what gets you control of $400,000. Margaret's expression didn't change. The trust assets will be used for Eleanor's care, as specified in the original trust document. Diane and Trevor have fiduciary responsibility. If you believe they're mismanaging the trust, you can petition for review. I already did. Margaret glanced at Howard, who nodded confirmation. Then the arbitrator will review your evidence and make a determination, Margaret said. Until then, the current trustees maintain authority. How convenient. How legal. We sat there in silence for a moment. The conference room was too warm, the air too still. Is there anything else? Margaret asked. Yeah, I said. I want to know who set the fire on Maple Street. Diane's composure cracked for just a second. A flicker of surprise, quickly suppressed. What are you talking about? House fire. 3 blocks from Mom's house, electrical tampering. Same day Trevor tried to access our electrical panel. That's absurd. Is it? You've already sabotaged the plumbing. Why not send a warning shot with someone else's house? Margaret held up a hand. We're not going to entertain conspiracy theories. If you have evidence of criminal activity, take it to the police. I will. Then we're done here. She packed up her briefcase, stood. Eleanor moves tomorrow at 10 a.m. Transport is arranged. Her belongings will be packed and ready. I haven't packed anything. Patricia will handle it this afternoon. I looked at Howard. He shook his head slightly. Nothing to do. Diane stood, smoothed her jacket. For what it's worth, I'm sorry it came to this. No, you're not. I'm sorry you can't see we're trying to help. You're not helping. You're eliminating obstacles. She walked toward the door, stopped. Dad chose you as successor trustee because he thought you'd be responsible. But responsibility means knowing when to step aside. Or maybe it means knowing when to fight. She left with Margaret. The door closed behind them. I sat there, staring at the empty chairs across from me. Howard packed up his papers. The arbitration hearing is scheduled for next Thursday. That's our next move. Mom will already be in Rosewood by then. I know. And I'll be out of the house. Probably. So what's the point? The point is, we fight. Even if we're losing, we fight. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot 3 floors below. Diane and Margaret were getting into separate cars, both of them professional and efficient, and in complete control. I'm not going to the hearing, I said. What? I'm not going to argue in front of an arbitrator. I'm not going to present evidence and wait for someone else to decide. I'm not playing their game anymore. Then what are you going to do? I turned away from the window. I'm going to change the rules. I got back to the house at 4:35 p.m. Patricia's car was in the driveway. Inside, I found her in Mom's bedroom, packing clothes into boxes. 3 suitcases were already full, sitting by the door. They called me, Patricia said without looking up. Told me to have everything ready by tonight. You don't have to do this. It's my job. Your job is to take care of my mother, not help them kidnap her. She stopped packing, turned to face me. Kidnap? She's going to a licensed memory care facility with 24/7 nursing staff. She's being removed from her home against her will. She doesn't have a will anymore. The dementia took that. Then I'm making the decision for her. You don't have the authority. Your sister does. I sat down on Mom's bed, looked at the half-empty closet, the boxes full of 40 years of accumulated life. When does it happen? Transport arrives at 10 a.m. I'll be here to help with the transition. And then what? You go work for someone else? Forget about us? I don't forget my clients. She went back to packing. But I do move on when the job is done. The job isn't done. Mom still needs care. And she'll get it. Better care than I can provide alone. You really believe that? She folded a sweater, placed it carefully in a box. I believe your mother is declining faster than any of us can handle. I believe she deserves professional care. And I believe you're fighting this because you're angry at your sister, not because you actually think staying here is what's best for your mother. The words stung because they were partially true. They sabotaged the house, I said. They're forcing her out so they can sell it. Maybe. Or maybe they're forcing her out because this house isn't safe anymore. It's her home. Homes don't matter when you can't remember where you are. I stood up, walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting, painting everything orange and gold, the same view my mother had looked at for 42 years. I'm not letting them win, I said. This isn't about winning. It's always about winning. Patricia zipped up a suitcase, pulled it to the door with the others. I'll be here tomorrow morning. Try not to make it harder than it has to be. She left. I went downstairs, found Mom in the living room watching TV. She looked small, fragile, disappearing. Mom, I said, we need to talk. Okay. I sat down next to her, took her hand. Tomorrow Diane wants to move you to a new place, a facility with nurses and doctors. Why? Because she thinks it's safer. I don't want to go. I know. This is my house. I know that too. She looked at me with those distant eyes, and for a moment, clarity flickered through. Don't let them take me, Jack. I won't. Promise me. I promise. At 8 p.m., I put her to bed, then went to the basement one last time. I stood in front of the electrical panel looking at the rows of breakers, each one controlling a different part of the house. Kitchen, living room, bedrooms, basement, garage, and the main breaker controlling everything. I thought about Trevor standing in this exact spot, screwdriver in hand. I thought about the Hendersons' house burning 3 blocks away. I thought about Diane's methodical planning, her documentation, her lawyers, her contractors. They were 3 moves ahead, but they'd made a mistake. They'd assumed I'd keep playing defense. I grabbed Dad's toolbox, pulled out a voltage tester, a wire stripper, a roll of electrical tape. Then I went to work. At 11 p.m. I finished. The electrical system was still functional, still safe, but I'd made modifications. Installed timers, rerouted circuits, created contingencies. If they tried to force me out tomorrow, I had options. At midnight, I sent an email to Howard Brennan. I need you to do something for me. File an emergency petition for temporary guardianship. Use the evidence we have, the sabotage, the harassment, the suspicious fire. Argue that Diane and Trevor are putting Mom at risk through their actions. Ask for a temporary stay on the facility placement until the arbitration hearing. He responded within 10 minutes. This is a long shot, but I'll file first thing tomorrow morning. That's all I need. A few more hours. I went upstairs, checked on Mom one more time. She was asleep, peaceful, unaware of the war being fought over her. I sat in Dad's chair in the living room, lights off, waiting. At 2:30 a.m., I heard it, movement outside, the sound of a car door closing, quiet footsteps on the walkway. I stood up, moved to the window, looked out. Trevor was walking toward the house, wearing dark clothes, carrying something in his hand. I went to the front door, opened it before he could knock. "What are you doing here?" I asked. He stopped on the porch, surprised to see me awake. "Making sure everything's ready for tomorrow." At 2:30 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. "So you drove across town to check on an empty house?" "It's not empty. You're here. And Mom's here, sleeping, like normal people do at 2:30 in the morning." He looked past me into the dark house. "I need to check the electrical panel. After the Henderson fire, I'm worried about our system." "The electrical panel is fine." "How do you know?" "Because I checked it, thoroughly. Everything's up to code. I still need to verify." "No." I stepped onto the porch, closed the door behind me. "You need to leave. This is my grandmother's house, and I'm living here under a legal agreement. You're trespassing. I have a key. I changed the locks, again." He pulled out his phone, started typing. "Diane needs to know about this. Tell her whatever you want, but you're not coming in tonight." We stood there on the porch, facing each other in the darkness. I could see the resemblance to his mother in his face, the same calculating expression, the same cold determination. "You can't stop this," Trevor said finally. "Tomorrow morning, Grandma moves to Rosewood. By next week, you'll be out of this house. By next month, we'll have it sold. There's nothing you can do." "We'll see." He walked back to his car, got in, sat there for a minute. Then he drove away, headlights cutting through the darkness. I went back inside, locked the door, added the chain. Then I went to the basement, checked my modifications one more time. Everything was ready. At 6 a.m., I started making calls. First, the fire department. "I want to report safety concerns about a property at 1247 Oak Street. Recent water damage, questionable electrical work, potential hazards. I'd like someone to inspect it before it's sold." Second, the county social services. "I'm concerned about an elder abuse situation. A vulnerable adult is being moved against her will, and I have evidence of property sabotage and harassment." Third, a local news station. "I have a story about estate abuse and elder exploitation. Might be worth looking into." Each call took 5 minutes. Each one created a complication, a delay, a reason to pause. At 8 a.m., Patricia arrived. "Transport is scheduled for 10, she said. "We should start getting her ready. Change of plans?" She looked at me carefully. "What did you do?" "I made some calls. Jack, I'm protecting my mother. You're making this worse. It can't get worse." At 9:30 a.m., a county social worker arrived. Not Angela Ross this time, but someone new, younger, carrying a clipboard and wearing the exhausted expression of someone who'd been given an emergency assignment. "I got a report of potential elder abuse," she said. "I need to interview Eleanor Williams." Patricia let her in. I stayed in the kitchen listening. The interview took 20 minutes. Mom was confused, frightened, didn't understand the questions. The social worker tried to be gentle, but Mom kept asking for Robert, kept trying to leave the room. At 9:55 a.m., the transport van arrived. 2 people in scrubs, professional and efficient, carrying a wheelchair. The social worker stopped them at the door. I need to complete my assessment before any transport happens. We have a scheduled pickup, one of them said, and I have a mandate to investigate elder abuse allegations. The pickup is delayed until I finish. At 10:15 a.m., Diane arrived, saw the transport van waiting, saw the social worker inside with Mom, saw me standing in the kitchen watching it all unfold. "What did you do?" she demanded. "I protected my mother." "You called social services. I reported concerns. You're sabotaging her care. I'm preventing her kidnapping." The social worker came over. "I need to speak with you both, separately." She interviewed Diane first, then me. Asked about the living situation, the family dynamics, the decision to move Mom, the property damage, the fire 3 blocks away. I told her everything. The sabotaged pipe, Trevor at the electrical panel, the suspicious timing, the pressure, the threats. At 11:30 a.m., the social worker made her decision. "I'm placing a temporary hold on the transport pending further investigation. Eleanor will remain in her current residence for 72 hours, while I complete a full assessment." Diane's face went white. "You can't do that." "I can, and I am. There are credible allegations of family coercion and property sabotage. Until I can verify the situation, Eleanor stays here." The transport van left. The social worker left. Diane stood in the living room, shaking with rage. "Probably. When this investigation clears us, and it will, we'll have documentation of your interference, your false allegations, your harassment. We'll have grounds for a restraining order and a court order for immediate placement." "Maybe." "There's no maybe. You just gave us everything we need to destroy you." She left. Patricia started cleaning up from the aborted move. I sat down at the kitchen table, feeling the adrenaline drain away, leaving exhaustion and fear. "That was stupid," Patricia said. "That was necessary. You bought yourself 3 days. Then what?" "Then I figure out the next move." She shook her head, kept cleaning. At 1 p.m., Howard Brennan called. The emergency petition was denied. Judge said there's not enough evidence of immediate danger. I got a 72-hour hold from the social worker. I heard. That just delays things. It doesn't change them. 3 days is enough. Enough for what? Enough to finish this. I hung up, went to check on Mom. She was asleep on the couch, exhausted from the morning's chaos. I sat down next to her, held her hand, and made a decision. Tomorrow, I was going to end this, one way or another.